In the summer of 1956, Connell Baptist Church hosted a vacation Bible school on a piece of land located just north of the train yards next to Hulen Street. Seeing the need for a church in the Sunset Heights neighborhood, the families that participated in that first VBS began gathering weekly for worship. It was only fitting that their first meetings were held in a tent. The following spring, the church moved into their first building, and then on May of 1959, they formally organized as Sunset Heights Baptist Church. The first official act of this brand new church was to take up an offering for world missions. The church's first pastor, Avery Willis, led Sunset Heights during its first 2 years, but over the next 20 years, the church would have 8 different pastors. The frequent changes in leadership made it difficult for the church to make progress. But that began to change in 1981, when Joseph Schultz became the 10th pastor of the church, which had been renamed Hulen Street Baptist Church just a few years before. It was under Pastor Joseph that the church built the original building that still faces Brandingshire Place today. Pastor Schultz led the church for 16 years until he stepped down in 1997. The church then called Jim Pennell, who would lead Hulen Street for the next decade. After Jim stepped down, the pastor search team would reach out to a former church member, and in 2010, Wes Hamilton and his family moved back to Fort Worth to become the lead pastor of Hulen Street Church. After the constant change that comes from 9 pastors in 22 years, the church has benefited from a period of stability and growth for the past 38 years. This season began with the ministry of Joseph Schultz and continued with the leadership of Jim Pennell. Their influence is still felt today through the solid foundation of ministry they left behind, a foundation that Wes Hamilton has worked to build upon since he arrived at Hulen Street. Every church is shaped by significant moments in its history, and Hulen Street is no different. In the fall of 1999, a fire broke out in the Old East building and destroyed the whole structure. In what could have been a devastating blow, Pastor Jim rallied the church and led them to rebuild. But they didn't just replace what was lost. They also expanded and created more space for ministry by remodeling the original church building and also building the worship center the church continues to meet in. In 2011, under the leadership of Pastor Wes, the church launched Paving the Way, an initiative designed to help create more space for the growing church while also supporting a new mission partner in London. In addition to helping plant Awaken Church, Paving the Way also allowed Hulen Street to build the main lobby, new adult growth group rooms, and office space in what came to be known as the West Wing. 6 months after opening the West Wing, the church added a second worship service hour to accommodate the new growth they were experiencing. Building upon the momentum of Paving the Way, Hulen Street started the Next Steps campaign. This initiative supported new church partners in Denver and Atlanta, along with several important projects around the church, including a remodeled entrance to the worship center. Because of the continued influx of young families and the rapid growth of the children's and student ministries, the church launched Back to the Future in 2018. The Back to the Future campaign raised $1 million for the complete renovation of the original church building and to support new mission partners in Pittsburgh, Haiti, and Madagascar. As significant as these events were, there was one event that helped to make Hulen Street the church it is today more than any other. In 1984, then Pastor Joseph Schultz saw an opportunity in the rapidly growing neighborhoods of Southwest Fort Worth, and in a bold move, he led the church to sell its property on North Hulen and purchase the 15 acres on South Hulen that had been the Fort Worth Racquet Club. The move gave the church room to grow in the middle of a growing neighborhood, but it came at a steep price because an estimated 90% of the congregation didn't make the move to the new location. For many churches, losing 9 out of 10 people would have been catastrophic. But for Hulen Street, what seemed like a defeat became a defining moment. Today, Hulen Street Church is located in one of the fastest growing areas in one of the fastest growing cities in the United States. But the faith of those who stayed and their commitment to serving and sharing the love of Jesus with their city created a church that to this day is willing to take great risks and make even greater sacrifices for the sake of the gospel.